one necklaces. I need one. Yeah, I think stars explain themselves. For the rest, could do a little bit of illumination. We'll start here. This handmade stern soother, as I like to call it. I saw a very beautiful man with one of these necklaces that was stone, and I was just like, I know you could do that with necklaces. I need one. And then my mom texted me just a picture of this. She's been like working at a maker's space a lot lately. It's like a free space. You can go in and just you purchase like the items, and maybe also time, but I don't think time. And then you make stuff. And so she's always making me stuff. She made me the planter that doesn't have holes in the bottom with the triangle, like sandstone color triangles, and she made a lot of stuff that is in my house. Again, it's also made stuff that is in my house. A lot of makers in my family, but this is something that she made at this maker's space, and I love stained glass. I love the tradition of stained glass. I love the hands-on relationship of stained glass, and I love the people in our lives that we know who have made stained glass. And so it was just very special. And she texted me this picture, and I was like, when do I get mine? Like, I was like, you're making stained glass at the maker's space? Like, that is so cool. When do I get mine? And just texted that back right away. And of course, she just sends it to me, the one that she, the very first piece. And so I was like, this is going to be a necklace. She was like, no, it's supposed to go anywhere. I was like, no, this is going to be a necklace, because I was so jealous of that guy and the like sternum piece, you know, like it's just such a spot. And I've definitely been doing different types of rhythms on it, and that's been really fun. And what else? Oh, I think it's very Gundam, and I love that so much. And it's the delta, it's the same space, it's the unifying symbol throughout time for creating that. And then you have like the three. Oh, there's so much going. Yeah, I love it. It's so good. And it's 6, not 8, which is interesting. To the true nerdy math community, I feel you double checking the size. So cute, so cute. Okay, so that's this. And the knots on it, the slip knots that make it like adjustable, I learned from my witchy friend in the Casting Together playlist. So that was really cool. She helped me retie like 5 divides of noble perception of tie. No, these are really well made. They came from the same shop as the witch I met in Louisiana who helped me tie things. And there's really cool rocks. This is like geode, sort of the line of quartz and crystal in a different black rock, maybe volcanic rock, I'm not sure. But smooth, but not polished. Really cool one for the black one. And then the bluish quartz, Jesus Christ. The bluish quartz, I don't know, it's like periwinkle. It's my favorite version of blue. It's like a purplish blue. It's the blue of the moors, you know, the gloaming of the twilight in cloudy sky. It's the best kind of blue. It's a wet blue, I would say. Like every coastal region understands this blue. Anywhere that gets fog even occasionally gets this blue. Anybody in snowy regions gets this blue. Yeah, and then like I would imagine that liminal place near the poles that sees like sun all the time, they probably really understand this blue. So like really cool stone beads to be finding, especially in that shop. And just absolutely gorgeous. And then these were just from my last day in Louisiana. I was feeling pretty exhausted by that time. I drank my way through Louisiana, like most of it. One of my friends kept saying, like, Jesus Christ, how many espresso martinis do you need? I'm like, there's not enough espresso martinis to drown out this hurt rage, whatever it was. And this was a monk donation on my last day. I walked through like one of the main squares and saw some classic wardrobes and gave $20 just for luck, just because I felt like I needed some luck. And I was like, take my last like $20 in cash in donation, like not looking for anything. And he gave me back these beads, and I was just like, okay, all right. I do not feel like I deserve this or earn this. I don't think I like that in the bead community, at least in bead culture. But because of that, and because cost of materials and the type of donation and what those people are going to use that donation for, and the general state of the world, it also felt like a cheap price to pay for these. And they're red, like blood. And so I'm just like, all right, well, that is stark and real, at least, which is better than nothing. Jesus Christ. I've been listening to myself for the last like 5 days, getting ahead of you, like the third listen to this upcoming week you are all about to have, and I'm like, yeah, I sure did say all of that. I did, yep. That just came freeform flowing out of my mouth. That's great, that tells me a lot about where we are as like a global community. It's really great. I've been checking in with everybody, psychically speaking, of course, and it all seems to be going as I expected it to go. Sleep is back to being somewhat regular, but that was to be expected. The lavender helps so much. Thank you, mysterious benefactor. I also have, oh, what a good combo. Kind of a weird combo, actually. But that might just be me. It's so funny how many things turn out to just be you. You know, when I re-listen to stuff and I try to imagine myself into a average audience member and really smoothing those averages out because I want all the world, right? But trying to do that and being like, you know, how did that part hit? How did this part hit? How did this go? And not hating my pulse, my temperature gauges, my psychic feelers on how it's going. I'm like, that means my map is pretty good. I worked on that thing for so long, so that's really nice. That's really, really nice. And if you haven't noticed in this ongoing narrative, the way that the male educators show up in my life, specifically men, have been either extremely helpful, giving me basic facts or information. Like, you all know who you are as you're listening to it, so I'm sure you can see the conversations we had. Or I have to like actively work around you because your presence in my life impacted it in a way that made me feel disempowered. And so I have to psychic with my brain, work around your presence in my life in order to like extract that info. We watched this happen with Mr. Alvarez in my middle school, where I was like, God, you know, now that I have to go back to middle school social science, you're lucky at the time it got coded, got encoded, got remembered in this way, where that hadn't like been a part of my understanding. Otherwise, that entire time period would have been damaged. Like, and same with Mr. Walker and the way that me and meniscuses have like an interesting somewhat phallic relationship in like a, you know, sexual abuse in the military kind of way, right? Like, this is an ongoing theme, and I've illuminated rape culture through my reminiscing experiences in academia while actively trying to like give a call to action for everybody who I know can hear me to do their part, whatever that looks like for them, in the internal shadow work and values alignment with behaviors. Like, and you'll feel better. You'll just feel better. You reduce cognitive dissonance when you align your behaviors with your values. It's just true. And the more you do that, the more time you get to spend doing that, the more tricky you get with how that looks for you, the better you'll feel. And like, we'll have empowered, autonomous, horizontal leadership within our lifetimes in the proletariat class if we really want to. Like, we have the technology, we have the capacity, we have all people, like, and everybody has more or less the ability to communicate with each other in a global network. This is awesome. Like, we can make this. We can make it happen. This is another thing my mom got me. It was like $10 or $11 from Ulta, and it is kind of like a Pokeball shape, which I thought was really cute. My mom is adorable. And inside are these tiny makeup things, like really well done, really well done. What's the word I'm looking for? Recreations, miniatures. Yeah, really well done. These aren't even full miniatures. If you're like a miniature aficionado, which I know at least one person is, these are not that impressive. But to me, I thought they were really impressive, super cute. The body butter one is called Buttons of Glory, and it says smoothing butt polish, tighten and blow. Watermelon, God, is this a eye test? Apricot, wheat protein, ethanol, and orange flower boost. And it's by Truly, and it recycles. Oh my God, it's so good. And look at the colors on it. It's very, like unicorn, centaur world, My Little Pony, you know, that whole area. It's very good. And then we have butter gloss, and look at the detail on this. Like, it's very good. I actually tried to like use it and was sad that it didn't work. This is a really good example of one of those brushes that fucking killed me as a child. I hated these brushes. They would just get stuck and then yanked, and the way they curl around like that, sometimes my hair would get caught up in itself, and then it would be stuck on the brush so bad until we like trying to yank this brush. Like, yeah, it was bad. And there were a couple times when we just got my hair. Like, one time I got bubblegum stuck in my hair, and I was just so frustrated with the whole thing. I tied it in a ponytail and asked girlfriends to like cut it with those like kindergarten scissors, and they did, and I just went home with like a really intense haircut. It was fun. I was Annie for Halloween. We were just like my hair bad. It was perfect. But yeah, this coloration correcting serum, that's intense after the story I just told. What is this? It's a dropper. Look at the, can I read the small print? Good. Discoloration correction serum. I assume this is for hair color, but what a phrase. And I can't read all of the smaller prints. So that's quite ominous, honestly, but in like a really cute way. There's a lot of that going on in my Christmas. It was quite a cutely ominous Christmas, which is, to be quite honest, kind of my preference. So it was very good Christmas. It's an ominous world, so I get really anxious. I get like really deeply anxious when my like understanding of reality isn't reflected in the sensory feedback I get. I'm like, but I know I'm shut off a little bit. Like, I'm pretty sure that it's as grim as we think, as we all think it is. Don't you love Grimm? Like the show, Invader Zim. Oh no, Invader Zim was different. Sorry, I never had cable, so this is my understanding of these things is very patchwork. But it was Grimm. It was the boy and the girl. It's like a Jack and Jill theme, and then the Grimm, like the actual Grim Reaper, would show up, and they would go on adventures together. I love that show. That was like Grimm and Sally or something. Sally was the point, which was also great. It was like the animation. I will never stop being like, the animation in this world goes so fucking hard. And it does, and it's so tragically held back by the serious, deeply problematic issue of pedophilia that we have in this world. like the impact of animation could be so much more intense worldwide. I think about this all the time when I watch animation because when I want to incorporate literally anything, I can make everything out of art. Everybody can. Everybody can. We know this. And having like a universal framework for things that people can like understand or use as a framework for a global community or a global perspective that we all kind of like low-key agree works, right? That's huge. That's a big deal. And the fact that everybody's like, ah, yeah, Uncle Iroh, we get you. It's huge. That's a big deal. That's a huge big deal. Good for us. I'm very goodwill towards men right now. Episode coming right up. Right, it's all over and is perfect and so a more general apology on really different Asian culture, ideology, perspectives, and people's. So the amount that I lean on the behavior of certain groups of Japanese soldiers during World War II in like modern training was pretty heavy. Because I only know a couple facts about everybody. My knowledge is highly broad and it's like kind of generalized. But it means that my like experiences of Japan are very visceral and personal. And then they embody and experience like global exchange. Like having some shared values around being in the song August 6th. And I was the memorial having a string of now 1,000 frames like together with others making 1,000 frames for the peace memorial in humanity. And you know, reading the telegrams that Japanese leaders have sent throughout time and space to other countries, like basically pleading for peace accords across different barriers and divides, like cultural and physical and religious and all sorts of divides for like a stay of execution for the world. Like they've been huge peace ambassadors in that floor and in that like area, and that really needs to be acknowledged as like sort of forefront thing. And I did not do that. I was like really in the forefront, and it was because it was Christmas in Jerusalem. It was the point of discussion and Palestine is the current like exertion of U.S. militaristic force in a deeply violent genocidal action that isn't also the combative Russia response that is happening in Ukraine ongoing, which is an entirely different type of war and requires an entirely different type of response. So besides that, and the continuing uncertainty sociopolitically in Italy and Brazil, North Korea, South Korea relations remain tense, and China as a power is continuing to be growing as a function of how are we responding to the severe inequity in slave labor culture around the world in a consumer commodification, highly over-consumptive, over-productive global economy that is fueled and supported by the U.S. military-industrial complex and the U.S. consumer-industrial complex, and also the world. And there's like a whole lot of it. You know, so in the last episode, I kind of outlined a lot of things, and I feel like we should listen to some of them. Through historic facts of the Crusades, as far as we know, more than anything, it's a very convenient way to get bored, militarized, wealthy men to spend their time not bickering with each other and go off to fight war for country. It was not the first, but also not the last time a country or a government had problems with the super well militarized wealthy men that they accidentally created a surplus of and then didn't know what to do with. And the solution at the time was to send them off to conquer the Holy Land, to fight in the Holy Wars, and the use of religion to operationalize those militaristic endeavors. Again, not the first or the last time religion would be used in this way. Christianity even has origins in Roman conversion through the use of military success. So this relationship between Christian and military. I can't believe I get to talk about the Crusades during Christmas. That's huge. Because it's such like the concept of a holy war is so time capsule protected by a variety of cultures and people. So the fact that I was able to work on that during the it's like maybe you did over there. World War II, cannot get into it extensively right now. Like, who is this person? I decided to take everybody on a philosophical and historical like tour, and everybody just was like, cool, this is great. I'm like, yeah, I can do this all day, all day. I love historical data storytelling. My introduction to Japan was so many times was in Japan. Because I did the last 3 weeks, and I listened to all the last 3 weeks from and was like, I mean, that's stuff. There's so much to add here. There's so much to add here. So many perspectives that could be included in the whole picture, and I can do it. And like, it's important actually because it makes other people who are also reporting out. And my narcissism review was just unreal. It's unreal because I've been reading this like during my financial because you'll see my table because start saying it's like, oh, super cute, really cheap, whatever. And then my sisters I got more and more modeling behavior. I got more and more explaining modeling behavior. And also become again more, and I gave a lot of socio-political historical context to my actions as well. And I did it in a way that was reflective and obvious and getting to understanding and getting all these different intersectional in-depth perspectives and like vulnerability and raw like historical data. That's unfortunately verifiable only when people know me. There are a lot of people who know me by now. I've been in the world all my life. social
so
science.
sorry. That was hard hitting. I try to remember that in a good for everybody, and I try to mention that in a good for everybody during the discussion. That's how I'm trying to create sort of ameliorative, neutralizing sounding narrative. We like listen to everything and every other bunch of different connected ideas, ideologies, attitudes, behaviors, historical narratives, literary like examples of historical facts, metaphor and literal moments. Oh my god! And then like so much misinformation. I was back and like that's not true either. And then like as I get where I'm like, oh, that's because we were going right there, and it was gonna be really hard to go right where you were going. Using the cornerstones that you're using are good, logical, and like pathways, like sourceable pathways for this conversation. For like a general Googler, which was my goal. I'm like, you know what? If kids are getting educated on their phones, hanging out outside of Taco Bell, like off the Wi-Fi, then they can wait for me. They're already in too bad a situation. I know my content was not for kids at all, but considering that's the one we're here to live in, as well as other things I think I've mentioned before many times,
The Chernobyl Diaries.
you know, I was keeping that in mind. So much news about the arcade language. I had to try that to build tracks around this. Yeah. A lot of hashtag responses from the inverse for this, but in very horizontal ways. So there have been a lot of inversions lately, like the horizontals and the verticals have all inverted, like phenomenally speaking, and I didn't even discuss in what directions. But this continued reconnection to the land is really great, and like there's obvious, historically documented, like I kept reading up the German thing, like the thing, but there's obvious documented ways that people have traditionally integrated when being or experiencing refugeeism or immigration. Like, and we see the EU taking, especially in the world leader, we see the EU taking a phenomenal hit for refugeeism as a whole and doing a fairly good job of doing it with grace because they understand the larger geopolitical like issues at play and the idea that we're trying to like turn back violence wherever we can and like grow and adapt as people. And it's because they have this really long-standing history under Rome, but before Rome as well, in building empires and civilizations. There were a couple names that I could not repeat, like remember during one of these episodes. One was Charlemagne. Charlemagne is huge. Like I could not access Charlemagne because I was absolutely avoiding getting into certain aspects of the history of the church around that time period. I really, really, really wanted to talk about very, very early Christian persecution, how it related to Greco-Roman like resistance culture, and why Christianity was so easily adopted by the Grecians because of the three bodies of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit being very easily adopted by culture used to a pantheon that had been like raped and appropriated by the Roman conquerors. And like Roman conquering was a like process of waves of different humans, including like Vandals and also the Germanic peoples, like all sorts of people. So this like early history after Indus Valley, like through Africa, relationships are really sensitive and they're really important to speak about with sensitivity. Like that cannot be stressed enough. And I'm honestly not the person to do it. I'm just the one that like feels they have the ability to open the room on this space, and so I'm going to try. I think I can make room for people who can talk about this better, and I think me talking about it like this gives them the courage and like some of the verbiage, keywords, things like that that they need to unlock these discussions, both abroad and at home. And I think that that's really valuable and something that I've been practicing and working on and working towards most of my life, whether or not I notice it. I've been doing so much self-reflection the last hour, definitely, but also the last week and a half, except that I was saying to myself, being like, 2 fucking years right now that you're like rattling off all of these solutions, you're talking about rapid redistribution of all the resources in an actual way, and you're discussing it from a moral values and ethics standpoint, and a lot of people ways it's highly convincing and based on a lot of empirical, easily sourced evidence. Are you sure you know what you're doing? And I'm like, yes, absolutely, the world is running, everybody's talking about it, but everybody's also like actively not bombing anybody. Like, yes, they are, but nobody has ruined the earth yet. There's an obvious Paris Accord, UN, financial 007 people, whoever you are, like, who are actively fighting against this. There is solidarity networks being strengthened right now, and I love lending my voice to that. I want to keep lending my voice to that. I live in a beautiful place that helps me generate that type of creative expression. Honestly, I've been listening to the rain and woodburning for the last 48 hours. I woke up to the sound of the rain on my heater. I use my heater out here. I love where I live, like, and I want to give an experience of an environmentally happy place, like relatively environmentally happy place to a world that is like suffering with environmentalism as a problem, and give like a message of hope and light and support and all of this stuff. And it's based on silly stuff. That's why I can do it. It's based on insane thought process being like, what are magnets? Yo, like just being silly. And then me being a kid, like researching what magnets were because I didn't want to be done, but I actually didn't know. You know, like and hearing that and just being like, oh, that's like cute. That's seeing in real life that the people who changed it, people that improved it, have always been educators, always been teachers, and something I always been mentors, people passing on knowledge that hope that knowledge gets used like appropriately and with intention and thoughtful care. And just the amount of those kinds of people out of my life, and the amount of people to like work on my idea of what holistic, gender affirming care looks like, holistic, like affirming care looks like for people. And I'm like, oh my god, we should try to generalize as much as possible, just the absurdity of this. We're doing it in artistic spheres, we're doing it with artistic license and like narrating prose and just this like gorgeous charter capacity and voice, right? Like we should just go for it. We should pour it all in there, like the whole historical narrative, because I have a really good amount. I told you, like full scale church level and statesman level, like military maneuvers, like whoever was controlling at the time, which throughout Europe is very both. And like this talk about this double dealing especially with food, I was just like, I was thinking before watching that part where I was like, oh my god, did you literally just say that, the human genome, like, expression, like the DNA thing, is being expressed in a physics-like, quantum physics-like social structure that is akin to the like spring of two institutions and to ensure institutional cooperation can form rapidly both make sense or not. And I'm not like looking at it, but like that can be like an expression of the human genome, and like our cellular biology even can just like express that even can be expressed on that level. Like you realize what we've done here, you know, from a logical implication standpoint, and we're going you know, like I set up the maze for my water of my kitchen floating. I set up my little like brain sanctuary for my kitchen, and the water brain engine to put it down and works for sure. But so they're not very precise, you know, like not yep to low and that. But it's not rocket science. Specifically not that. It is not that. I'm very impressed by rocket scientists. Me too. Oh my god. This is a like triple confession episode, I can already tell, because we haven't even done like look at it yet. We're very I cannot believe how much money I spent on groceries this year. You too? Yeah, oh my god. I did, as you know, a pretty intense Christmas kitchen mess with a inhale to this particular slim volume of righteous philosophy. But I really had to preface the Siberian moon, and I really had to beg everybody to leave off making any judgments in the course, because this space is important for us to be thinking in. And we protect our space. Yeah. Moving a conversational space, I think speak world politics is very difficult. And then wait until that condition arrives for you to make those decisions, because the embodied experience of being in the moment with all of the context in place and the decisions before you is yet again going to change if you let it. It's going to change what you are capable of choosing and what you will choose, and that is free will, and it's way harder. It exists only below the quantum level, lying over behind everything about quantum mechanics. But as I mentioned, it's going to have an effect. So the amount that you mentioned. I woke up to the hiccups, which is just the most atrocious thing. It's like having a maid service for your body, really awakening you with different lines and telling me visitors coming at 7 or something. It's awful. It was like 4:30 in the morning. I was like, fucking fine. You know, as soon as I got up, my body's dysregulated. It's really annoying. Decided to make a hat because I made the slug little shirt and I thought it was cute. So I'm like, well, we got a little slug bee with a cute button shirt, so we should make a little hat for me. Or someone, I don't know. Hats are easy to make, they're fun. Yeah, I've just been sitting with all of this yarn and the apologies to Japan and trying to like not come off as an Axis power bootlicker, because the present day relationships between Russia and America are very interesting right now. And I don't want to rock the boat any more than necessary, but I also, again, am attempting to speak into a global theater with the understanding and the like cultural relativity necessary to intercede in a way that the UN really has not been able to successfully capture when it comes to being able to enforce volunteer style organizational participation. The violent enforcer in the room, aka the U.S. military-industrial complex, is a serious consideration at every level, and I am constantly considering it at as many levels as I can possibly handle at once. Just pretty much as regulated this morning. But we did need to type some loose ends, and part of that is this token deeply felt and experienced and embodied racism against Asian people. And that's a huge swath of a very diverse set of people, and some people that I have not named or called into the global theater that I really feel that they should at this point are going to be Indonesia and Polynesia. I felt like a really positive, sorry my teeth kind of hurt, something brushed this morning, and very dysregulated for 9:21 on Wednesday. But it is Tuesday, so I feel that there's a lot of change with me. It's a little hat.
We won't make that mistake again.
For a while.
No.
But it has to be done this
Oh, but surely just for one.
So I've been really good at hats. I've always been like a very jack of all trades type of person on purpose, like wanting just enough of a taste of stuff for the meaning of it to come through to me, and I measure meaning very intentionally through the lens of Philip Pullman's historic materials, the lethiometer, and Lyra's use of it. Lyra had very actionable use of this particular tool. And she operationalized it really intentionally and towards the betterment of what she thought was the world. And it was a really Genesis-style story, which is why it was so breakthrough at the time, because like using any kind of biblical literature archetypes has been strictly controlled by the people who made printing presses, right, like in publishing companies. And so that particular area of the labor force in Congress has been fairly heavily restricted up until relatively recently, and the people who were changed by Wattpad are really doing interesting stuff inside. So it is very much to the benefit of companies that are going to rely on AI to confuse those particular creative souls and cycle them in any way possible. This goes back to my hardcore episode, which I'm currently
currently struggling with right now, as you probably can tell. Have been drinking, have been high. It's been an ongoing thing. It's just now New Year's. So I'm hoping to pick back up sobriety as the planetary body shift through space and time return to regulation, self-regulatory practices through healthy for me when practice at microbial and quantum physics level, not necessarily in the more mechanistic systemic integration level, depending on which level you're speaking on. Again, back to the spheres of influence. There's on spheres, spheres. Yeah, the Royal Society like really holds together a lot of the scientific community around the world, and when these topics are brought up, there's an instant existential threat that is also being posed. And so my ability to talk with the intention of not giving existential threat is constantly in flux. It's constantly, and it needs to constantly be in a certain amount of dynamism, where it can be useful, it can be operationalized, and I love operationalizing it. All this to say, I really need to get oat milk today, and I can't, like, I don't want to move. Like, I don't feel like I can justify any more, like, motion during this winter period, and that feels so sane to me that I don't want to, like, not lean into it, but I also just, I need to get supplies because I want to continue running based on my body rhythms, and that's what all this, like, for me.
Memories of hope and of glorious
This one's going to be really weird. This is the first half that means it's going to be strange. I just let that be the case. I love Dutch architecture because it's uniquely rhomboidian, I guess, or it's, like, just vaguely curvatured in interesting ways. I don't know. The architecture freaks have really been freaking out because they're like, what if she gives away our secrets? And I'm like, I won't, I promise. Or if I do, it'll be an accidental expression of mathematics more than it'll be any intentional exposure of the specific knowledge I have of your architectural practices. Okay, promise. Hands off the secret society stuff. I know we talked about the utopian diaspora in generalistic terms, and it was going to stay there for a while, and maybe I just need to reinforce that with everybody and just be like, again, I can't put my hands down. This is not stuff that I can, in good faith, talk about without my religiosity significantly increasing. Like, it's just a reactive response to the attitude networks that I've built. I've built it with a lot of thought and intention over a long period of time through, like, education and vocation and a variety of sectors that I've already elaborated to you and expressed the connection to my, like, perspective on a larger global community. I know I talked about music, coffee, book houses that I would love to see around the world. As a part of each community participating in open-ended democratic relations with cultural exchange through walking a mile in one another's shoes at the urban and rural level, in federal, state, national, depending on your regionality. And all of that super fun discussion. Yeah, I've really covered actually quite a lot of ground, and that's another reason why I found it important to apologize to Japan in the way that I did it, because I wanted to parse that nuance between xenophobia and, like, just not being treated humanely, because that has been a precedent with the posturing of both the British colonial empire and American imperialism that needs to just end. Like, in the global theater, I think every other country agrees that those two things really need to die, and we need to help them die socially, and anybody who's helping them live socially is sort of a part of fascism at this point. Due to the oligarchy situations, it's becoming extreme and, like, violently climate activist level important, but it's also something that is important that we work on together, and a part of the later half of the historical narrative that I have illuminated and spent a long time working to outline involves weapons of mass destruction and nuclear warfare. And the last I heard, based on relative positions of all of those different waste areas, as well as practice on that technology, as well as research into nuclear energy as a renewable resource, all of my present-day knowledge to say, this is a really delicate conversation. Yeah, all of us have, like, a lot going on. And so I was, thinking of, and again with broad, not deep, right? Like, I don't have everybody's, like, literal living history memorized to extremes, but I have some really good literature archetypes that I'm pulling from. I have a lot of good sociopolitical knowledge from sociopolitical classes that I've taken through the study of anthropology, sociology, and then psychology. And then I have just a lot of faffing around thinking, free thinking philosopher, desert father style monkish behavioral thinking on the topics that are most dear to my heart. And oh god, I do love cold fingertips on my foreheads. So good. I've just been thinking really girl in the tower archetypes, and the ways I've set this up have just been so thoughtfully constructed. Did you ever see the animated DreamWorks maybe version of The King and I? Now, if you want a really good dragon series, like, oh my god, update you on everything dragon series, you have to read Naomi Novik's Temeraire. It's like 13 books. It starts with His Majesty's Dragon, and then it's Throne of Jade and Black Powder War. wow, it'll just give you Napoleonic level updates, and we can all like talk about some stuff some more. It'll be hard not to reference that book series as like an around the world tour, reimagining every country's socio-cultural political powers as sort of like dragons as ancestors, dragons as friends, dragons as leaders. In just a really useful way. Is gorgeous. I know I was talking about Christopher Paley before, but he's more of like the language side of stuff, although the dragon culture there is really good too. But yeah, Naomi Novik's Tomb series, super good. I know I can definitely carry already for that same like around the world tour of deities and magic systems. Robert Jordan as well, Wheel of Time, Brendan Sanderson, We Have Kings. Those are all really great sociocultural fantasy sci-fi novels to like kind of what your appetite on those topics from a reading and literary sense. Oh yeah, there really is though like a full understanding and use of the dual helix nature of religiosity and statesmanship, which, to be quite honest, is really, really lacking pretty much everywhere. Like, honestly, I am genuinely advocating that diplomats and priests are, like, linking up and working together at this point, and that's, like, alarming due to the amount of sexual predatory behaviors that the church has, like, institutionalized in a broad sense throughout the cultures as a means of, you know, this colonial rape dominance and intentionally continued dominance, intentional re-victimization culture, this, like, death worship culture that needs to be inverted in order for us all to move forward into the solar future we totally deserve to have as creatures that live in this solar system where we might not be alone or we might not forever be alone in the solar system. It's worth considering all of the implications of these different logical elaborations that both for Matt and for me have presented us with. And so nobody knows that better than the radar telescope community, and those are the ones that I was hoping to most quickly capture and charge the hearts of. I hope I did a great job with that. I felt like I did. I watched The Fountain, you know, and I saw Everything Everywhere all at once, and I saw Cloud Atlas, and I'm just now finishing watching The Peripherals. I saw all of Doctor Who multiple times. Saw Firefly. You know, I was there for Mad Max, the epochs of Mad Max. Like, it's all pop culture stuff. I think people have a really hard time with continuity of tools if they're not using the vehicle of archaeology as a framework. And the vehicle of archaeology as a framework is pretty inaccessible to people who haven't been participating in the Royal Society due to the sun, you know, never setting on our British Empire. And what's bloody in the British Empire right now, I'm like, let's just all use the important stuff as a means of shared history making and keep our Christmas markets, you know, in a fun shared culture kind of way, as opposed to an atrocious. Yeah, and you know what is in the shared culture kind of way? It's the heart of it, the kernel of truth there, or the condensation nuclei, or the magnetic magnosphere stuff is really going to be the bizarre, B-A-Z-Z-A-R, the bizarre. And yeah, if we're not being inclusive of the arithmetic aspect in the room in a way geared towards peacemaking capacities, like, and potentially offering horizontal level language barrier breaking solutions, then we're not talking. Everything for me is centered on gratitude, at least partially because of this positivism as a choice. Also, in a general sense, like being a little field mouse over the last 20 years in my life as a 32, almost 33-year-old woman, being able to just like see the slow unfolding of historical impacts as I'm learning relatively, I'm not going to say unbiased, but a good patchwork of relatively factual information that I could use to break into the conversation at that level with that magnitude. And it shouldn't really have necessarily been possible, but because the way I operationalized what I learned, it had this magnified impact. And that is my argument for quantum psychology in the sense that at the quantum level, your dimensionality shapes change capacity. So you will with that one. But I was arrested by my thinking during the holistic healthcare episode, and the way that I depicted this like intentional squeezing of the ritualized format of like the transfer between age groups and like what that looks like from a perspective of holistic healthcare. It sounded like quantum physics. It sounded like the Large Hadron Collider hanging like particles off of each other, and the death threats that they got for doing that because of the percentage of likelihood that it could cause a black hole in an elephant in space. And it was just like, it was that particular socio-political event in our world history was less of a indication of the egregious outpacing of science and our scientific tools and our scientific literacy and the masses, although it was an indication of that gap. But more so, it was a glaring deficit in the average populace, the average person's like scientific literacy as a whole, over what the percentage style meant. And so there was like a massive, what I would call positivistic restructuring in academia surrounding public education campaigns and like targeted education campaigns, and it seems to be doing a really good job. Like everything I'm seeing in the overall discussion and narrative seems to be elevating the conversation surrounding the details and the specific details. And I think nobody has been more inspired in doing that in the last like 80 to 90 years, or I should say like inspiring in wanting to attempt that in the last like 100 to 150 years. Yeah, because we said we were on our prints and included 100 years lore by doing 100-year gaps. Yeah, so in the last like 100 years, probably the most inspirational in recent historic academia for wanting to positivistically orient academic areas of inquiry towards solution and practical application of empirical research has been the relationship between the Muslims and the Catholics in Spain during the time of the Inquisition and when the Roman Catholic Church started first offering indulgences. I know nobody wants to hear that necessarily right now or ever again, but we should probably talk about how inspiring that relationship is as a potential grafting framework on which to use the Cyprus Island interdependent shared goals reintegration of multiple peoples in one place, including refugee peoples who've never lived there before and including natives who've always lived there, kind of thing, as a potential solution towards Jerusalem as a place on the map and in the hearts of men, right? In the hearts of so many people with history with that space and history with the ideology coming out of that place and that time in our experience as a human species, like this perspective as being an alien, being a visitor, being first contact, a mental sort of game or like thought experiment is very, very real in the sense that it creates an obvious outgroup for us to then consider ourselves as an in-group within the context of our environmental, like pressing environmental needs and the need for some rapid solutions and shifts in order to stabilize our present species-wide population, like health within the context of our environment, because it's us that will go extinct. Our environment will recover, but our species won't. So this is the time to like save our species or continue to decimate our environment as a means of like continuing these cycles of harm processes out into our solar system as a means of dominion and control, and perpetuating this extreme feudalistic mindset and structure weaving that I really think can be folded down to a quantum layer within individuals and rapidly change the overall social structure of our current systems. But that's a huge ask. I just think like now is the time. Like, and I'm really well informed in thinking that, and I think that the people that I have reached are also really well informed in thinking that. So it's important to continue to think about why that may be. But let's not forget everybody in the room. It's a hard ask. It's a really hard ask. You have to think at an ants level, like A-N-T-S or A-N-T-Z. I personally think of Penelope Scott, who has a song called like Reason and Ants in Proportion. Really great one. That's what I use. She's so cool. She has another one called Cigarette Adiago. Also great. But yeah, the biggest like issue that the scientific community really has with sharing information with a more general public audience is the level of general scientific literacy, and that has been a campaign that has been waged really only in the last 100 years, and it's great. It's an awesome 100 years of educational literacy campaigns in a horizontal way, I would say, like a very not easily discernible way, and that is commendable, and it's something that countries have been competing in, I should say. And that's one reason China as a power is important. The surplus ingenuity and creativity that China has cannot be understated, just as far as their population size goes, like as in a general sense. And that's one reason that Japan has so much concern surrounding their population density, although that's not the main reason. It is partially that, but it's partially this like grief, if I may say so, after shouting into the void for so long on the topics of weapons of mass destruction and world peace and world dominion and what these like logical implications are, and not having anyone else like talking into that space really at all with the same forcefulness until like Greta Thunberg and then Extinction Rebellion and like Earth Day and all of these different aspects surrounding environmentalism started really showing up around the world, around like across cultural divides, across all sorts of different perspectives and peoples. You really saw that focus, and you saw it come out a lot in relationships with Africa, really. I mentioned like rhino horn as an ethical consumption product, partially because the poacher and anti-poacher campaigns on the African savannah have been so fucking legendary. Like this is it's a shared story, and it is all interdependent and interconnected, and if we don't approach these topics with care, we are going to have some serious issues. But there is also like serious sources of strength, like Nelson Mandela. The people who control the Cape of Good Hope are very specific people. And they know it, and they know how and why. It's such a stark space. It's what made the East India Trading Company, privateers, the Dutch, the British Navy, the US Navy. Maybe? I don't know. I don't know where any US things are. I intentionally have never looked at US bases for anything. I'm like, if I know where one is, it's because some veteran told me about it. So I'm like, okay, look at that one. I know that one. It's in movies. It's totally gonna be a blue hat. It's a beret. A little bit. But it's... Okay, it could be a beret. Yeah, no, it could be. Yeah, environmentalism really has to be our unifying shared goal. That's the thing. That's like the main thing that I got out of my years and years and years of education, both formal and informal education, has been this just rising confidence that the solution to our global socio-political and environmental ills is this. What did I do here? Oh yeah, this rising confidence in the solution to our ills is to like consider ourselves as a species with potential alien-like intelligent life neighbors that could be like a galactic community somewhere in the Milky Way that we could potentially link up with as like friends for shared resources and experiences, and depending on what that looks like for us, you know, that's like a huge existential threat, I know. But if we think about it that way, we can think of ourselves then as an in-group, and if we think of ourselves as an in-group, it gives us some perspective for what our shared goals and values are. And if we do that, then we can consider from there, from our shared goals and values, what to do about the current distribution of resources and people in a way that rapidly increases the quality of life for everybody. It reduces or eliminates housing insecurity entirely, and gives people the opportunity to grow food for themselves in their own land and share it with their neighbors, share what they cook with their neighbors, and start like a chain of cultural exchange that could revolutionize the world. And I'm arguing that America is primed to be the perfect country to start that process, but everybody should participate as a means of like friendly bake-off competition sharing style of interdependent shared goal, friendly participatory inter-community competition contact, you know. And it could be anywhere in the world that baking ever gets done, as long as you're baking. I know that's so broad in general, but that's what I do. I just claim it for myself because I'm bold and brave and beautiful. Girl. Yeah, that's right. If you haven't seen Constantine, the movie, you really should. I think that's the last little thread I have to clear up from the rest of the last few weeks' casts, and this is the 10th now, not the 9th, it's the 10th. God, we're doing some timey-wimey stuff lately, aren't we? Time distortion is so real. It's all about the Doppler effect, I'm gonna be real with you. That's why Big Bang Theory is like a TV show series was so iconic. Talk about a mass educational campaign. I still have to get groceries, and I just really don't want to, but I've really gotta go. I've gotta go do it. Plus, this is my little project. I'll get it done by February, no problem. I've been saying that to myself a lot lately, like, no problem, no problem, no problem, no problem, and it's gotten to the point of, like, being in a Russian accent. That's what I know it's bad, it's like, no problem, no problem, that I'm no problem, big problem. I'm just like, oh, God, you know. It's the possum meme. I say no problem, but it was all good. And thus it ever is so problemo, but we've got a hat sort of started. It's a little kind of a beret looking thing, but it's going to be a beanie, so it'll be like a long sock of a thing probably, and it's really soft. I think it'll go well. Potentially along different topics, but I think that what I haven't begin to like set this limit, and the talk sounds a little too sort of, but you know.
so obviously I haven't been able to do it in days, partially due to all the exercise that I've been getting more regularly, which was the plan. But you know, partially due to the anxiety of talking the way that I do all the time, everywhere that I go. The consistency of it is crucial. I can't stress enough that I'm basing a lot of this off of the sci-fi speculation of the Ugliest, Prettiest, Specials, and Extras series, and it speculates on things like social economies, distribution of people and technological values and resources and systems in a somewhat dystopian future with much more organized means of controlling population density and size, which is a huge question in the global theater that nobody wants to address because everybody has their own like histories and practices of being absolutely awful, which makes sense. I'm not trying to throw shade at like specific people. I know this is tense, and you know, even outside of the YouTube channel or the podcast, I've had like people comment to me multiple times in my life in general, but with alarming increasing frequency, that the way that I talk sounds a little too similar to many of the radical environmentalists who later lost their lives, likely due to federal government, like the misuse of the people's institutions, by the violently applied suppression tactics of the US government. I'm like, yeah, what's fucking new? Like, this is the world, that's what we're talking about. I know. My stomach hurts. I really need to poop. But I haven't eaten enough and I've exercised too much and I'm too anxious for all that to work. And that's just my human body. That's my point. It's like, we are limited. We are, all of us have this limit. And I'm trying to zone us out so rapidly for the purpose of discussing the fact, specifically, I really gotta keep bringing it back to quantum psychology because I feel everybody being like, oh my gosh, she's doing quite parallel. So much what's happening with you. And a lot of like dark scenarios going through my own head, both plausible and implausible, and a significant amount of, just different conspiracy theories that I've had to test against my own internal structures and like how likely is that scenario, how likely is that scenario, and even worse, having to dig into like how likely might be a good judge of how likely that scenario is, which is a harder question, it's harder to think about. So really tense stuff these last few days. I had to dye my hair before Brittany. You know, did you see like the last time I saw Brittany, she was dancing with knives. Like, how is she now? Because that was cool, like that was some skill, but I was also just like, are you okay? And the look in her eyes told me she was just not okay. Yeah, so I brought up some really glaringly scary topics, but I think that what I want everybody to like really pay attention to right fucking now and think about, especially when considering the dispersal of your own personal attention span, what that looks like for you as an individual and measurement of your own energy within the context of your personal life and your intersectional identities. What I really want you to think about in terms of holistic preventative healthcare, mental health, and quantum psychology and mindfulness on all those levels is if there is other sentient life evolving alongside us in our solar system, so the most likely areas could be like Europa, right? And whatever's going on in Europa underneath all that really, really ice is much more likely to talk to whatever is in our Mariana Trench than it is to talk to us. And the implications of that fact, right, of that like speculative, like, oh, even if that's not specifically true in the specifics that she said, it could potentially be true along different dimensional time-space ratios that she doesn't have specific access to. She really does not. I do not have specific access to anything. I'm a polite psychic, okay? Like, I don't look at your secrets. I know you look at mine. But that's because I want to have this conversation, right? Like, I think we can, but we have to be so quiet. And the psychic plane cannot act out the way that it's been doing for the holidays. We can only keep quiet enough for it to be useful. I don't know. That's just my paranoid really. A little bit really probably at this point. Like I had to go full blonde. And I can't poop. And I had to wear the alien shirt, so real serious stuff here. But I don't know, I just can't stop thinking about, I mean, life is serious, right? I was watching today's podcast video with the Stearns there, and losing dice, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like a die more than anything, like some kind of like a hate on sort of thing. I was like, oh, we fucking love you. Like, if nothing else, we share fandom. And fandom is powerful. Fandom and folklore and like the stories we tell each other and why we tell them is just so phenomenally powerful. And I just want us all to be a little bit more confident in taking our own like lore kind of more seriously, take yourself more seriously. I think becoming actualized, capable, horizontal leadership communities that are networked in a larger global community, like within the like the boundaries of current borders. Because current borders are not okay. There's so much stuff that needs to get worked out. It's just absurd. I know, obviously, one person to do it. I just feel like I can help facilitate it, and I can help model facilitation practices that can be useful. Oof, and I know that keeping my head in front of you is not always going to be useful as a means of deterring literally dying. I get that. Yeah, I've been in that situation most of my life. Using this point, I just complete the real of saying things that are true and listening to how true they are in the room. And I'm doing it like in a really good way at this point. And it's thrilling, but mostly because saying true things feels good, and I know that feels good to hear that. No matter who you are. I heard this is an indication in my head based on speculative models and things. I get how fairly accurate it is. It's just good education. Like, if we had been valuing the social sciences the way that we should have been valuing it years ago, and many other things within the sciences, we would not be so back. But unfortunately, all of fucking held back shit. So you're almost me. We're gonna suffer more. Like it's literally about climate change. It's literally about environment. I watched like Al Gore's Taking Out to make an immediate truth, right? Like I watched this growing up. I watched this thing happening, and I was just like, yep, all that's true. It's true. Like the first thing I looked into when I moved to a coastal region was like, what are the local institutions' plans surrounding climate change? Like, do they have a plan? What is it? Is it well informed? Is it data driven? Is it research organized? You know that like these are good questions to ask when you move somewhere, when you change where you go. And I like storytelling a lot more than I like wrestling. I love wrestling, but like oh my god, the MMA side of things has just been like, yes, there's just been a lot of joy in my heart, at least, and I get that through
Fighting. I saw this hilarious meme that was just like a girl writing in her diary and it was like 7 years motorcycles or something. I was like, that book is so great. The amount of times that people tried to get me to read that book was so high, and I was like, this is high occupancy space during high occupancy time right now. You know, this is a very important developmental period in my life. You want me to read this book, and I don't know, it's pretty dense. Like, it's a really dense philosophy there. I felt that with so many books that were given to me. Starhawk and the Spiral Dance, The Secret Teachings of All Things, The Magician's Companion, a lot of different ones. I really enjoyed Galileo, the book feeling. I skimmed it. I mostly just got from those particular readings, I mostly pulled out the practical knowledge of institutional frameworks for the state and church level. I was trying to build a global picture, because I guess I felt a lot of guilt, especially early on, like survivor's guilt, but also just like, why am I here? And I feel like I am alive to be here, and I really love being here so much. I think I love being alive, I love everything about it. The way life changes, like I could just sit and watch the universe turn forever, and I think most people kind of agree about that now, and I also think really sharing my thoughts about it, so I get this seriously strong vibe that most Earthians in this present day are really would like more time. And I need to just keep arguing that we have the capacity to give ourselves that time and space and everything, but we have to move so quietly. And I know everybody knows that, but I feel like somebody needs to say it in a way that they can't hear, right? Like, yikes, yeah, I know, who am I feeling now? Very scary stuff. It's like, it's not, I'm living like full sabbatical player. I don't even speak the truth. I'm no longer understand every time I start recording. And it's scary, like, trying to do my life around this, I'm trying to demonstrate all of this really cool learning that I've gotten in the past 15 years of my life, because it's been incredibly transformative stuff. And I think it really helps. I'm trying to standardize like everything all at once. And I know it's wild and a lot, but it's like fun and imaginative and cool and interesting, and I've never moved so quickly before in the way that I've changed the way that I'm thinking, and that level of fluidity has been incredibly like synergistic for new generative content in a way that is interesting and applies a certain exponentiality to it, depending on the different ways I can adjust different things at the micro levels. So this year is going to be really interesting. I've spent the last first week of January while you listen to me listening to me, listening to you, me listening to me a lot, eating too many french fries probably, and getting some much needed laundry done. Also just going through like all my travel gear, all of my exercise gear, all of my outdoorsy gear, all of my shoes, all the people who left shit at my apartment and need to pick their stuff up. Just kidding, love you, fan. It's not a big deal. Putting away all the Christmas stuff, being like melancholy but in a yearning, softly sort of fashion over the gifts that I still have yet to give, the recipients, still waiting for them, enjoying the bee patch that I got to sew on my hoodie, and the little disco ball my mom got me, really fucking cute. I need to find a way to hang that like shines more. It might just be in the center of the room. But we're gonna workshop that. There's so much like little gifts and even more stressed out. This sucks. Like, I hate stressing people out. It's the worst. It's literally the worst. And usually I go out of my way to make sure nobody's stressed out ever. And really that's kind of what started this whole thing, was being like, you have like just a sublime talent for calming people down. And not just people, but animals, like all sorts. At this point, it's almost too big of a talent to have any kind of bushel on it at all. And like it's a little too late too with a lot of your digital footprint. So antics. I don't know, at this point, like, let's just do some own it level stuff and see how it goes. And then I started doing that, and then I started realizing there was no going back. Like, you just can't. Once you start using all of yourself to do something, you invested. Like, you're done. That's it. You put your money on the table, and it was taken. Like that's the end. So that's been a whole thing for me. And it's been uncomfortable and rapid. And so I've been doing a lot of exercising, like too much. And I know I mentioned this a lot. And my left knee has swollen up as it does when I overdo it, and I don't take my time to build up the small muscles before working on the bigger muscles after periods of atrophy, which I go through frequently due to my chronically online / poor consistency in exercising life that I'm attempting to modulate. And so, it's been sore and kind of crazy, but there have been times in circumstances that I felt like it's necessary, and I feel like the gap was worth it. So nursing inflammation at the moment, still not drinking, super stoked about that. I am California sober though. I know they're judging me about that, and I understand the criticisms, especially with the brain fog and like emerald status. Like, I totally get it. The amount of what is it? Lack of flat cover in this January time at this particular regional location is alarming and concerning on a greater scale of things. I know most humans out there, not anymore, are always paying a little bit of attention to the weather and deciding what it means for you in your life. Some of us are more affected by the weather than others, of course. Some of us are sleeping outside, and their bodies are considered illegal to be there at all. It's the deeply fucked up part of American culture that needs to change. Housing as a human right needs to be implicit and explicit in our legislature, in our policy, in our legislation, in every level of our federal, city, state, organization, agreement, social contract, whatever. Like, if we're going to do some rapid reorganization changes, I made it really clear. I think we need public transportation to get a big boost. I think we need that kind of walkability, bikeability infrastructure to get a serious boost in protection. I think the urban and rural relationship or divide needs to be lessened extremely. The gerrymander needs to go. There needs to be a cap on campaign contributions. There needs to be a cap on lobbyists. What the hell is that? There are obvious changes that other politicians have already suggested making. I have not bothered to make those ones because they already said it. I hate repeating stuff that other smart people have already said. They're already in the room. They're already talking. You are ignoring them for whatever reason. That's on you. People already said that stuff. I don't want to talk about that stuff. I don't want to spend my 1 hour talking about the world about stuff that everybody already knows. I want to talk about stuff that everybody's too afraid to talk about because I think I can. And I think I can do it without dog whistling or like bringing up a bunch of aggro-activated attitude networks. Because I'm coming at it once again from a heart to faith, from a point of real care, from a point of genuine human compassion, desire to holistically update rapidly, provide healthcare for the average individual. I think that would be a really wonderful track to take. I think starting with sex workers would be a appropriate response for the policy, public health level aspect of things, and obviously women's rights are going to be an implicit part of that. So hopefully I made all that clear. If not, let me just wrap it up for you. It is the first week of January, ending the first week of January. It's now the 7th. 7 is, canonically a lucky number. It's also the amount of days we have in our calendar week when we talk about policy and legislation, the things that are incredibly inflexible barriers in our calendar-specific world that most of our math runs on, and that most of our economy then also runs on. So, very important first week of January. It is important to note that it's not the first week of the fiscal year for the world economy, though. That's going to be the first week of June. So keep an eye out for that. That's partially due to the technological advancement calendar that I mentioned, which is an 18-month calendar, but that's also partially because that is the fiscal year for the American government, which is the primary one being used as the hand of the oligarchy for treatment equality issues, mainly because our military-industrial complex is pretty unmatched, and there's enough deeply conflicting value systems making up the components of the American people is to make us a susceptible glove for those very small collection of people of interests and power groups that we collectively as a global community don't necessarily need to live with, right? And so I think there is a lot of scary stuff going on, but what is very interesting, and I really will, I'm going to continue to reiterate this because I think it's really important. What's interesting about the American population when I talk about citizenry, and again, if you live here and you're subject to this law, you're a citizen, whether you're a felon or an undocumented person, or you were born here, natural born citizen, whatever it is, you're a citizen to me. If you live within our cartographists, the current cartographist, which right now I believe is Google, or Apple competing, depending on your country, but the current cartographists drawing lines, and the current extension to which legislation is going to impact you, legislation, policy, and executive decision making, is going to impact you within the drawing of those lines. And also making that national distinction important because when we are talking about atmospheric weather and psychic conditions, it's a little bit different. But when we are talking about being subject to the laws of your country, I'm not Canadian, nor am I from Mexico, I'm from the US of A, and that is very obvious, everybody knows it. So I gotta be there. We are talking about felons in America, we are talking about undocumented workers in America, and then we are talking about everybody else, I hope I didn't miss anybody, but who lives here and is subject to us. But those people specifically, and I know again back this so much, those people have so much potential, like so much internal potential in their minds, with their attention, with the living experiences that are so unique to them, that they've had, that nobody else in the world has had, that everybody in the world is a little bit odd and charmed by. The world is odd and charmed by the average American experience because it's what it's seen in the national televised, radioed theater for the past century. So like, that's all we got, man. We got that little tiny crescent silver lining moon of charm for experience in the global theater. Otherwise, we're really new as a country. We're really annoying as a country. We're really interfering as a country. We're really causing a lot of genocide. We're encouraging armed races, money deals, all sorts of really deeply bad fucked up gangster ass shit in the global theater. I'm only getting away with it because this crazy synergy mix of things is coming out of this many different national identities collectively identifying with one national identity later. Sorry, a bunch of different people having one national identity being subject to laws. But the diversity of our country is the exploitation of that, the bastardization of that system that is designed in this particularly deformed way in order to exploit the lowest of the low first, the American caste system has to go if these people are going to be actualized and given a sense of personal autonomy and free will enough to take control of their lives and kind of become global facilitators in conversation. And I think that's really the thing that America has shown themselves to just be phenomenally charmingly good at, is that facilitation capacity, and I'm trying to demonstrate that a little bit. I got a public education, and I know I'm exceptional as a thinker, and I know I had a lot of early childhood enrichment, and I know that I have been a voracious reader my entire life, and that sets me ahead in a lot of different ways. I've also intentionally been not self-limiting. I've intentionally curated artistic outlets alongside more rigid system thinking models, and in all ways attempting to be balanced and even-handed in things as I move through the world, trying to help save the world, which is, the hero complex is real in me. It's a really embarrassing, vulnerable thing to show you how much that early childhood death really impacted me and made me think about loneliness and made me think about ostracism in different ways, and made me think about mortality differently. But I don't think that thinking about these things differently is necessarily bad. So anyway, America has a lot to teach us about cultural exchange and synergy of new ideas in ways that create rapid, sweeping technological upgrades and medical upgrades and all sorts of stuff. But the exploitation aspect of it and the deeply fucked up, traumatic, rapey, just class-tiered reboot the genetic opera system of it all it's gotta stop. And that's my line. I'm we have such capacity to do so many cool things as people. This governmental system doesn't need to be completely thrown out. I think a lot of it just needs to be re-examined for whether or not it genuinely serves the public good. Good Samaritan philosophy needs to be applied a little bit more broadly to all the spirits of all the laws. Paralegals need to get better pay. But this is stuff we know. Made me think about loneliness, made me think about ostracism in different ways, and made me think about mortality differently. But I don't think that thinking about these things differently is necessarily bad. So anyway, America has a lot to teach us about cultural exchange and synergy of new ideas in ways that create rapid, sweeping technological upgrades and medical upgrades and all sorts of stuff. But the exploitation aspect of it and the deeply fucked up, traumatic, rapey, just class-tiered reboot the genetic opera system of it all it's gotta stop. And that's my line. I'm we have such capacity to do so many cool things as people. This governmental system doesn't need to be completely thrown out. I think a lot of it just needs to be re-examined for whether or not it genuinely serves the public good. Good Samaritan philosophy needs to be applied a little bit more broadly to all the spirits of all the laws. Paralegals need to get better pay. I'm just gonna throw that one in there because I know they do. But this is stuff we know. And everybody who's part of the labor sector that they are part of, everybody who's pouring their life into their thing knows what the solutions are and what the problems are. We just need horizontal, rapid, leadership to rise up and just apply